Before a ball had been kicked in the Championship this season, I went ahead and made my Championship predictions. But a few of them might have changed from the start of the season. After all, we've had a whole month of transfer activity since then. So for those wondering, these were my Championship predictions before a ball had been kicked this season. And in today's video, we're going to be revisiting some of those shouts. And I'm going to be saying whether I stick to my guns on those predictions, or I think a club could finish higher or lower than I originally predicted. Without any further ado, let's jump in. Start now at the bottom of the Championship table. Originally I had Sheffield Wednesday, and I'm going to be sticking to my guns with that prediction. Still think that Wednesday will most likely be the weakest Championship side come the end of this season. Wasn't massively blown away with their transfer activity, and as we've already seen of these opening 5 matches, Wednesday have struggled to get points on the board. One of 3 Championship clubs yet to win a match this season. I just think that especially at the top end of the pitch, Wednesday will struggle for goals to consistently get those points that it is going to take to survive this season. Now, in the end, they did pick up a couple of decent additions throughout that transfer window. I think that John Buckley could be a nice pickup on loan from Blackburn Rovers, but when stacking up the quality of that Wednesday squad with the other sides who I'm expecting to be in and around them come the end of the season, I think I've still got them down as the weakest side in the league, and I still have my reservations over Xisco long term as well. Now, 23rd, originally I did have QPR, but I'm going to go back on that prediction slightly and say that they will finish higher than the original prediction I went with. The sticking point with QPR is I do feel like they are lacking quite a bit of squad depth in a few key areas, where if some big injuries do pile up as we get going throughout this Championship season, then QPR could still run into a little bit of trouble. But it does feel like there's been more of a buy-in into Gareth Ainsworth so far this season. Obviously they had that bad start to the season against Watford, but since then there have been some more promising signs, added a bit more experience to that side in the transfer market, and obviously kept hold of Chair as well, who could be an absolute game changer. I still think QPR will be in and around the relegation zone, but as of recording right now, I think they may just avoid it, which is going back on my prediction from the start of the season. This next prediction was a really difficult one to revisit. In 22nd place I had Rotherham, and I think my gut's telling me to stick with this prediction right now. Now, Rotherham have been a very solid outfit under Matt Taylor, and I think that will continue between now and the end of the season. I just think that a couple of factors could end up costing them come the end of the year. Now, statistically, Rotherham have been one of the weakest sides in the Championship so far this season. They've created the second lowest XG in the Championship, whilst also facing the third highest XG, and that's a little bit of a recipe for disaster if that sort of pattern continues between now and the end of the season. I would still expect Rotherham to be down there. With that being said, there are still players to come back from injury into this Rotherham side who could lead to an upturn in form. Obviously, it's one win from Rotherham's first 5 matches, and I did like the look of a lot of their summer recruitment. I think they've added to that squad quite well, but I think it'll be there or thereabouts between Rotherham and the next few sides who I've got placed above them. But as of recording, I think I'm going to stick to that prediction of Rotherham in 23rd. It'll go close though. Now, in 21st place, originally I did have Huddersfield Town. Revisiting this prediction, I do fear they could slip into the relegation zone. And if I had to call my bottom 3 right now, I'd probably go Sheff Wednesday, Huddersfield and Rotherham. The reason I say that is because I don't feel it was a great summer transfer window for Huddersfield. I felt like they've left themselves with some quite big gaping gaps in that squad, particularly at the top end of the pitch, and come the end of the season, I think that lack of goals could prove fatal for Huddersfield. They're going to absolutely have to rely on a solid defensive structure, but even that has looked a bit shaky in matches so far this season. They've already conceded 10 goals in their opening 5 matches. Yes, it was a good win before the international break at West Brom. Just feel like that lack of goals in that squad perhaps could catch up with Huddersfield come the end of the season, and maybe if Huddersfield are in a bit of a sticky situation halfway through this year, Warnock throws in the towel. We just don't know, do we? So right now I've probably got more fears over Huddersfield than I did when I originally made this prediction. 20th place, originally I had Plymouth Argyle, and do you know what? Off their first 5 matches, how they went about their transfer business, I actually think they could be slightly higher than this come the end of the season. I still think that lower mid-table would be a reasonable prediction for Plymouth right now, but I think that forward 3 especially is so much fun to watch. They'll catch a lot of sides out this season, especially at home, and while While there are some vulnerabilities, especially of Plymouth being caught on the break defensively with how many chances they've conceded so far this season, I think they will outscore a lot of sides this season, and based on my prediction of Plymouth from the start of the season, I think I'd slightly bump them up a place or two right now. 19th place in my original predictions, I had Cardiff, and I'm pretty happy with that prediction right now. I think that Cardiff are 19th in the table, coincidentally, albeit we've only played 5 matches so far, but come the end of the season, I still think that's a reasonable prediction for Cardiff and where they're at as a club right now. I think there's a little bit more attacking intent about them compared to last season. I think that Aaron Ramsey's had a good impact on that squad so far, but still a few weaknesses, and Errol Bullock's still slowly figuring things out. So I still see that as a reasonable prediction, so I'm going to be sticking to my guns on that one. Originally, I had Hull in 18th. This is a prediction that I'm going to go back on. I will say they will finish higher than that come the end of the season. Now, to be fair to me, Hull have been fairly active in the transfer window between me releasing that video and the end of the window itself. They got deals over the line for Aaron Connolly, Jaden Philogene, Scott Twine and Adam Morton in that time, and so quite a bit has changed with Hull since then. I like the overall vibes around the club. I still think there's something to be said about the amount of chances they're conceding right now. I think that's an issue that Rossini will have to address as the season goes on, but generally speaking, I do think Hull will be higher than I originally had them penned in. A prediction that I'm very happy to go back on. Originally I did have Preston in 17th place. I'm going to say we will finish higher than that come the end of the season. Obviously, we top the championship right now, but I'm not getting too carried away. We're only 5 games in, and I don't think Preston will finish in the top 6 come the end of the season, but I do think we'll be higher than the 17th placed finish that I originally had us penned in for. Now, to be fair, quite a bit of transfer activity went on at Preston between me making that video and the end of the window. Deadline day was a flurry of activity for us, and while we didn't get that deal for Tom Cannon over the line, I think we did strengthen our squad across the board. Some new additions already having a significant impact in that squad so far, with the likes of Will Keane, Dwayne Holmes and Mads Frotjar. Had a little bit more about us in the final third than I expected, albeit I think we could still be creating more chances. We've just been very clinical so far. Defences look really sturdy though, and all in all, given the additions, I would say we'll finish higher than 17. And we are on a big upwards trajectory right now from my predictions at the start of the season, because I originally had Birmingham penciled in for 16th. I think they will finish higher than that based on the last month of transfer activity and Blues' start to the season. Thought it may take a little bit of time for John Eustace to knit this new squad together, but the start of the season's been really positive. I think they've taken huge strides forward compared to last season, and while I don't think they will be quite in the promotion picture, which they maybe are right now, they're 4th in the table, I would place them, I bumped them up quite a few places from the 16th place finish I originally had them penciled in for. Still a few of my concerns there from the start of the season, but generally speaking, the vibes around Blues are very good right now. I've really liked what I've seen from them so far this season, albeit it is very early days. In 15th, I originally had Watford, and that's a prediction which I'm fairly happy to stick with for the time being. It wasn't the most productive of transfer windows for Watford in the end, but they did clear some of the dead wood, and ultimately, I think that's still a squad finding their rhythm right now under Valérien Ismaël, and I mean, time will tell if the Watford board does stick with him, because the results have been very inconsistent so far. They've failed to score in 3 of their opening 5 matches, but then they hit 3 against Coventry and 4 against QPR. So Watford been a very unpredictable up and down side so far. Wouldn't be surprised if that continues for the remainder of the season, to be honest, and I could still see them being in this sort of lower mid-table region. 14th place, originally I had Blackburn Rovers, and while they are higher than this currently in real life, they're 13th, I actually fear they could drop further down the table come the end of the season based on my original prediction. The problem I have with Blackburn at the moment is where the goals going to come from in the final third. So far this season, they've been relying on sort of Sam Gallagher, who tends to average around 8 goals per season, a youngster in Harry Leonard, and then obviously I know they've still got Niall Lennis to throw into the frame as well, but we've not seen much of him so far. Wasn't massively blown away by Blackburn's transfer activity this summer either, and I do think they've left themselves a little bit short, particularly in those forward departments, which ultimately come the end of the season could cost them a few places. Stoke City originally had them down for a 13th placed finish, and you know what, I'm going to stick to my guns on this prediction. I'm still fairly happy with what I've seen from Stoke so far and where I see them finishing come the end of the season. We've seen the ups and downs of that team so far with Alex Neil, a variety of results. I do think they have strengthened the squad this summer, albeit it was a massive overturn of players, and that is going to take time for Neil to go ahead and gel all of these new pieces together, as I think we've seen from them so far this season. I think that when everyone's fit, Stoke do have good options across the board from front to back. I think there's more goals in that squad this season. But with that being said, when you change the continuity within a team as much as has been done at Stoke this season, you are going to get a wild ride of inconsistency. I think we've seen that so far, and that could continue for a while this season. Originally I had Bristol City penciled in for a 12th place finish, and while they are higher than this in real life as things stand, I do feel that maybe they could be one of the sides to drop down slightly based on my predictions from the start of the season. Obviously in the end they did lose Alex Scott. I think most of us were expecting that to happen. Didn't really go about reinvesting any of that money back into the squad after they'd already sold Scott. They obviously already made some moves in the transfer window before that point. But on a similar line of thinking with Blackburn at the moment, just feel like they might have left themselves a bit short in the final third. Home form's not been the best so far, but they've looked more lively away from home. Albeit very early days for Bristol City, just feel like maybe a lack of goals come the end of the season could cost them a place in the top half like I originally predicted. Before a ball had been kicked, I predicted West Brom to finish 11th. That's exactly where they are in the table right now, albeit we've only played 5 games so far. But I think I'm going to stick to my guns with this prediction and say West Brom will still finish 11th come the end of the season. Still feel like the Baggies will be there or thereabouts in this region of the table. Obviously they were somewhat limited with the business they could do this summer, and so in the end it wasn't the most productive of transfer windows, but they only really lost Dara O'Shea from that starting lineup last season, and going off the starting 11 I still think it's very competitive to be there or thereabouts in the playoff hunt. But I think we'll get spells of inconsistency for this West Brom squad throughout the season, like we will with a lot of other sides in this region of the table, and I'm fairly happy with what I said about West Brom at the start of the season compared to now. This could be a prediction that I do really come to regret at the end of this season though, because originally I did have Swansea in for a top 10 finish, putting quite a bit of faith in Michael Duff, and as we've seen based on these opening 5 matches so far, it's just not happened whatsoever for Swansea. They're one of 3 Championship clubs yet to win a match this season, so I think it's fairly obvious that I will be saying Swansea will finish lower than the 10th place I originally had them predicted in. Now, quite a bit changed at Swansea in the final month of the transfer window. Obviously, Joel Perreault eventually did depart, getting that move to Leeds. I have liked the look of some of their new additions so far. I think that Jerry Yates has had a decent start to life at Swansea. Patino, I think, looked like a lively creative option for them as well. But under Michael Duff so far, the new system is just not clicked, and it may still take quite a bit of time for the results to start falling in place for Swansea. So all in all, I think I have to say lower than the 10th place I had them in for. Start of the season I had Ipswich Town down for a 9th place finish, which I thought was fairly optimistic, but based on their start to the season, the transfer activity, I'm going to say they'll finish even higher than that finish, which would be, I mean, miraculous for a team coming up from League One. But as things stand, they probably would be a team which I'd be tipping for the top 6 come the end of the season. Now, I don't think they'll hold on to that second spot that they currently occupy, you know, from now until the end of the season, but the early signs have been hugely promising for this Kieran McKenna side. I think that they've got goals to come from all over the pitch. I think 6 different goal scorers they've had so far this season, and while there are some vulnerabilities I think you can get at them at times, I think they've shown an adaptability where they're able to win matches in different scenarios, which I think will suit them very well long term. And all in all, I've just been really impressed so far. Millwall, originally I had them down for an 8th placed finish. I still think they'll be there or thereabouts in this region of the table, but based on their start so far, I think they could potentially drop down a few places from this original prediction. They've not looked especially prolific so far with just 4 goals in their opening 5 matches. Don't think that Zian Fleming has quite got going yet for the season. Kevin Nisbet has been a decent addition, but defensively so, they have been conceding quite a lot of chances, on average conceding 17 shots per game, which is the 4th highest in the Championship. Still feels like Rowett has a bit to configure there, where I do think they had a productive transfer window. Maybe they could drop slightly from this original prediction. 7th place, originally I had Norwich City, but based on the first 5 games of the season, I'd actually bumped them up into the top 6. Been really impressed with Norwich so far. Now, going into this season, I had a better feeling about them, but based on the first 5 matches, I think the creative numbers have been excellent so far. Gabriel Sara has been one of the best players in the league. Now, it remains to be seen whether or not that injury to Josh Sargent could have quite a big impact on Norwich in the games that he is missing for, but they've added some good experience to that squad. I think that the youngsters coming through at the moment are going to continue to impress, and generally speaking, just got good vibes around them. So overall, I'm backing them for a top 6 push now. Sunderland were the team I had originally predicted to finish in that 6th place spot. Now, would I revisit that prediction slightly? Maybe. It's a tough one with Sunderland because they got off to a bit of a sluggish start to the new campaign, but then right before the international break, they had that unbelievable performance against Southampton, putting 5 goals past them. It's a very young squad that Tony Mowbray has at his disposal right now, and I just feel like maybe with a couple of the sides who I've tipped to improve based on this prediction, Sunderland could be one of those sides victim to falling out of the top 6. I still think they'll be there or thereabouts in the playoff picture, but with such a young squad and so many youngsters to embed, not quite sure yet on the level of Nazeri Ruzhkin, who they brought in as that new centre forward. Maybe they just fall short now. Now, there's no denying that Coventry so far this season haven't been performing as a top 6 outfit. With that being said, I still think there's a lot of promise for this Cov side to come good come the end of the season, because the puzzle pieces that Mark Robbins has put in place this season, and while they've not quite been firing on all cylinders so far this season, I think I'm still going to stick to my guns with Coventry making it into the top 6 once again. Always a bit more fun when you stick to your original prediction. I still think there's more to come from Hadji Wright and Ellis Sims going forward. I think the foundations at the back are solid, but why not? I'll back that prediction to stand firm. Another prediction I'm going to stand firm with is Leeds United. I originally had them in 4th. I'm going to stick with that for the time being now. It's not been the ideal start to the season for Leeds with just 1 win in their first 5 matches, but generally speaking, Daniel Farke's sides do typically start off fairly slowly and then grow into the season as it goes, and I think that the squad Leeds are coming out of this transfer window with, there's still more than enough quality there to be challenging and knocking around in the upper echelons of this championship table. The problem that Leeds ran into was that it took them so long to get their transfer business going and really get the ball rolling, but I think what Farke's got at his disposal, there's more than enough firepower to get them into the top 6, and I also think they've improved on their defensive options as well, so I'm going to stick to that prediction. Middlesbrough, I originally had them penciled in for a 3rd place finish. I'm going to have to go back on this prediction. I am going to say they'll finish lower than that come the end of the season. Not been the ideal start for Michael Carrick's side, one of 3 championship clubs yet to win a match this season. I think they're coming out of this window looking weaker than they were at the end of last season, and ultimately my prediction originally with having Middlesbrough in 3rd was I thought they'd be doing a little bit more for the here and now with their transfer business in the final month of the window, but their recruitment this summer has been more geared towards the future, I'd suggest, with a lot of the incomings, and it is going to take a lot of time for Carrick to bed all that in. While they do currently sit bottom of the championship, I wouldn't suggest they've been as bad as those results would suggest so far this season. Certainly the underlying numbers from an attacking point of view would suggest that there are goals to come from this Middlesbrough side. Defensively though, I still have a few worries about them. And that's where we get into the top 2. 2nd place, I originally had Southampton. I'm going to be sticking with this prediction now. Southampton had a massive wake-up call before the international break with Sunderland putting 5 goals past them. Up until that point, it had all looked fairly promising for Russell Martin's side, but I think that that will be the signal that they can't take any games for granted this season. I think that Southampton are coming out of this transfer window still with a squad more than capable of competing for an automatic spot. Don't forget they've still got Ross Stewart to throw into this team as well, and Russell Martin's sides tend to have some teething issues early on. I think they are a team who could improve as the year goes on, and just generally I think the quality in that team will ultimately carry them over the line. And I'm going to go along with a similar line of thinking for Leicester City. Originally I had them to win the championship. I am going to be sticking with that prediction. Still think there's quite a bit of work to be done there, with Enzo Maresca's side not yet been all that convincing on the eye given the talents they've got available there, but still 12 points on the board from a possible 15. Had that bump obviously before the international break, but 4 wins from 5 matches, and I don't feel like they've even gotten out of first gear yet. I'm going to say they will improve as the year goes on, and they'd still be my picks to win the league. But guys, there we have it. Those are my updated championship predictions. Do get yours in the comments down below. How much have some of your opinions changed now that the transfer window has come to an end? As always, don't take these too seriously, just for a little bit of fun, but do get involved in the comments down below. And I'll see you all in the next one.